Hello everyone, welcome to the TriStar Gym channel. Today's episode we are doing the pre-fight analysis video. I'm going to be answering your most popular comments and questions on the Khabib versus Tony Ferguson world title fight, upcoming world title fight. You guys sent me your comments and questions and I will be answering them in this video. Thank you for all of you who participated and posted your questions. Thank you for all of you who upvoted the questions as well. Real quick, thank you to our sponsors, TimTam.tech. They make the world's best deep tissue therapy device, and Reebok, of course, and a special thank you to our new sponsor, Monster Energy Drink. Thank you for making these episodes possible. I'm gonna jump right in, and the first comment or question is from Capcom Fan. Capcom Fan comments, Khabib by ragdolling. Khabib by ragdolling is a very real possibility. That is definitely true. We have seen Khabib tear up the lightweight division with dominant wins, and that's a great way to describe it. He's been ragdolling opponents one after another. He is a master grappler, a master wrestler, a master judoka, good decent striking behind his grappling game, but at the end of the day, when he gets a hold of fighters, he just throws them around. In almost every single fight in UFC, that's exactly what's happened. He's gotten a hold of his opponent and just taken them down repeatedly. He had a record-setting 21 takedowns against Abdel Trujillo, and it was just unbelievable amount of takedowns, one after another, taking down guys who are supremely hard takedowns, such as RDA. He took down RDA repeatedly, not only in round one, but also in round three, and just one takedown after another. And we all know RDA has some phenomenal wrestling to back up his great jiu-jitsu. And it is very possible. It is very possible, like you say, Capcom, that he grabs a hold of Tony Ferguson, takes him down, mauls him, and does it every single round for 5 rounds. That is a strong possibility in my mind. His father, Khabib's father, is a world-class judoka. If I remember, he was a national champion in judo as well. A great wrestler himself. I've seen a video of him throwing Khabib as well, like wrestling Khabib and throwing him. Foot sweeping beautifully. I've gotten the chance to hang out with Khabib and Khabib's father a few times, and Khabib one time sit down with them and talk about their training and their regiment and how their philosophies of fighting, etc. And I could tell you that Khabib and Khabib's father especially really knows the game. He really knows the game. They understand, wrestling and judo to how can I tell you, they're masters of wrestling and judo, no doubt about it, needless to say. But they also have their philosophies on takedowns against the fence, and how to utilize these trips. And it's just beautiful to see what Khabib does up against the fence. It's poetry, if you love wrestling and jiu-jitsu and judo, it's just amazing. So it is, I agree with you, it is very possible. This is a one-sided ragdoll beating, but I don't think it's gonna be, but it's very possible. And you had the number one top comment. Okay, so I think there's a lot of people out there that think that Khabib is just gonna walk forward and ragdoll Tony. It is possible. The guy is a master grappler, wrestling, judo, sambo, jiu-jitsu. It's unbelievable the level this guy is reached. And we've all seen the videos of Khabib as a child wrestling a bear. I just love that video. It's such a phenomenal video. And this guy is born and bred to do this. Grab onto another human being, bring him down, dominate him, control him. Will he ragdoll Tony Ferguson? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But it is definitely possible. So, next comment or question here. This one's from Commando. Commando Master asks, what do you think? Who do you think is going to win, Tony or Khabib? This was a really blunt, straightforward question. I think this fight can go either way. I think Khabib really early is going to set some dominant, is going to score some dominant takedowns, dominant ground control. But Tony Ferguson, I hate to count him out. He's got this incredible, unorthodox striking style where he switches stance. He throws elbows. He hit Kevin Lee with a beautiful elbow that I found the commentators missed. But during their exchanges, he hit him with a beautiful elbow. And we all know that Khabib walks forward, marches forward. And that elbow down the middle, a lot of people are trying to punch Khabib on the way in and having success connecting. But Khabib just keeps walking forward. Michael Johnson connected. I was watching one of Khabib's earlier fights in Russia, and he got hit hard on the way in. I mean, this is something he's been hit on the way in throughout his career, early in his career and later in his career. But Khabib takes the shot so well. He just kind of like backs up a little bit and keeps coming forward. He's not shy when he takes a shot. He's not gun shy. He has no fear of getting hit. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'll let you guys decide that. But when you walk into an elbow, it is very different than a punch. Now, if you've never been elbowed, it's very different. It's very different. I've seen really, really tough guys walk through punches, and those same tough guys not be able to walk through elbows. And I have seen guys walk through elbows. I have seen it. It does happen. However, it's just really, really dangerous. If he gets hit with an elbow, if Khabib walks into an elbow, we're gonna know if he's gonna get more takedowns or not. Because if he backs away and he's hurt, I mean, the takedowns are probably not gonna happen too much anymore. A great example of that is when Machida fought Weidman. Machida late in the fight after losing multiple rounds. I think it was the fourth or fifth round. He finally hits Weidman with an elbow, and Weidman gets stunned and backs up, and we're like, okay, this could be a turning point. Everybody was like, this could be a turning point. And there wasn't so much forward pressure after that. I could see it happening very early in Khabib versus Tony in this matchup. I could see that elbow flying really early and really making a huge difference in the rest of the fight. Will it? That remains to be seen. He's got those long John Jones type elbows, Tony does. And watch him hit Tony Ferguson with that. He didn't stop the takedowns. Watch him hit Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee's still marching forward, but that was significant. A few more of those, and the whole fight can be totally flipped on its head. I can't wait to see what Tony does with the striking. I was supremely impressed with both fighters. The RDA versus Tony Ferguson fight, both those fighters, in my opinion, did a really great job. Now, a lot of people say, Tony really shined and dominated RDA. Well, if you rewatch that fight carefully, no doubt about it, RDA wins round one. No doubt about it. All the people I spoke to about that fight, I haven't heard one person argue that Tony won round one. Not yet. I haven't heard one person tell me, Coach, I thought Tony won round one against RDA. RDA did a great job in round one. It was a tight round, but he scored that takedown. He landed a few more strikes. And then in round two, there was that eye poke. In my opinion, a very serious eye poke. And the people didn't really talk about very much the next day. Not enough in my opinion. RDA started losing round two. And then he lost round four and he lost round five. He had come back in round three, if you guys remember. But that eye poke was significant. When you get poked in the eye, your vision is going to mess up your timing. Your vision is going to mess up your counters. Your vision is going to mess up. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys. You get poked in the eye. I don't care if you're a freak athlete. I don't care if you have a lot of heart. You can't see the shots coming. I would love to see an RDA versus Tony Ferguson rematch. No eye poke. I really wonder what would happen. And then we compare that to Khabib versus RDA. We all remember that fight. RDA dominated that fight in every single round. It was incredibly impressive. But what did it for RDA versus Tony Ferguson for me? What I found was the most impressive was Ferguson's striking. Ferguson didn't shoot any takedowns. I don't remember him shooting any takedowns. He stuffed multiple takedowns. He only got taken down once, if I remember correctly. But his striking was really good. His striking was, he was switching stances. He was throwing a lot of variety. And he was picking apart RDA, which is not easy to do. It is not easy to do. And the reason I bring it up is because RDA has that compact style. Hands up tight, elbows in, marching forward. He's not as forward. He doesn't march forward as much as Khabib, but he has that compact, congested type style. And I would say that RDA even has a little bit more speed than Khabib when it comes to striking. And he has that compact style. He's a little bit faster. He's got more kicking ability than Khabib. Khabib's more of a puncher. And Ferguson's striking shined. It shined. He has that same pressure. He has that similar pressure to Khabib. RDA has that similar pressure to Khabib. He has that similar compact style. He has that similar forward pressure. Plus, he has more kicks. And Ferguson, I thought, handled him well, standing up. Now, again, there's that eye poke. You know, and the eye poke to me was very significant. In my opinion, made a huge difference in the fight. A lot of people, I think, brushed it aside. But it does give us an indicator what the stand-up can look like against Khabib. Tony's stand-up against Khabib. Now, we saw also Kevin Lee stand up against Khabib. Excuse me. Now, in my opinion, Kevin Lee's striking is much more explosive than Khabib's. He's much quicker, and he has more kicking ability. He's not as much forward pressure. He's more of an explosive fighter. But his ability to go from A to B, crossing that line, is faster than Khabib, in my opinion. Khabib's more of a he's got a marching style. He marches forward slowly. He's more of a RoboCop. And Ferguson did well in the striking. It was tight. It was close. It was a close fight. Round one, Kevin Lee landed a beautiful strike, dropped Tony, and then Tony then stunned in the same round. At the end of the round, stunned Kevin Lee, and then he stunned him again. If I remember correctly, it was in round two. At the end of round two, the stand-up of Tony, he stuns Kevin Lee right before the end of the round. It was a really, really close fight standing up on the feet, and I find that the speed that Kevin Lee has is not going to be there for Khabib. So the stand-up, I gotta give it a little bit to Tony, you know. But will it be contested on the feet, or will it be 99% of this fight? Will it be on the ground? That's what I'm really interested to see. But Tony has a very, very nice stand-up game. A very nice stand-up game. Lots of variety. He's got the reach. He's got the speed. He'll switch stances on Khabib, which will make it hard for Khabib to march him down. I mean, there's a lot of good components here. But I want to see if Tony lands those elbows. And what's going to happen if he lands those elbows? How is Khabib going to react? All right, guys. Next comment or question here. This one's really small. I got to zoom in here. This one's from Pilav. If when Khabib takes Tony down, what position will he favor in order to maintain control while doing damage? Considering Tony is very unpredictable, explosive, and good at scrambles. Yes, Tony Ferguson is the master of scrambles, definitely. What position will Khabib favor? In my opinion, the best way to hold Tony Ferguson down is the side control. Side control and crucifix. If you put him in a side control and crucifix, and we all know that Khabib loves the side control, he loves the crucifix, it's going to be very hard for Tony to scramble out of there. The crucifix, in my opinion, is one of the hardest positions to escape. If you put Tony in the guard, you can also control him. One position that I find will be hard to control Tony is the turtle position. We've all seen Khabib get on top and the opponent's on the bottom turtling. But can Khabib hold Ferguson down? Sure he can. It's possible. Of course, anything's possible. But Ferguson is so good at rolling. He's so good at kind of getting up and then rolling into a a Granby roll, tying up the leg locks, tying up the submissions. He's good at popping up to his feet, then creating a roll, getting blocked, coming back up to his feet. He's phenomenal at rolling as he's getting taken down. We all saw him roll out of a Josh Thompson double leg. He's phenomenal at scrambling. He's phenomenal at that funk style wrestling, where as the man is doing a takedown, the man who's being taken down will roll, grab an ankle and roll into a leg lock, or roll back to his feet, or kind of reverse the takedown on you. We all know Ben Askren. He's the master of funk. You know, this is not freestyle wrestling. This is American collegiate. I believe they call it collegiate. I'm not very familiar with the American styles of wrestling. Like I've watched it, of course. I admire it. I grew up in freestyle wrestling. There's none of that rolling on your back stuff, which I really, really like. I wish I could have learned that style of wrestling. I also do it myself, but I learned it all from jiu-jitsu when I kind of blended jiu-jitsu and wrestling together. I use a lot of rolling on my back, like the stuff you'll see Gary Tonin do. You know, when guys grab onto him, he'll dive for an ankle and kind of roll. I know in America they call that funk, and you know, we call it scrambling. You know, when you dive and roll like that, we call it scrambling because you're not in a locked up position. I love that rolling style. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. And I can't wait to see how it clashes with Khabib's style, because Khabib's style is so orthodox. It's so freestyle, judo orthodox, where there isn't any rolling. There's no rolling. There's no funk, like they call it in the U.S. At least that's what I understand they call funk. We don't have any of that. You know, in Canada, we don't have any of that. There's no funk rolling. And in Russia, from what I understand, they don't have that either. It's really freestyle. And Is that going to surprise him? Well, look, he comes from Sambo. He's seen leg locks. Okay, Sambo guys are known for their leg locks. I'm sure he's had guys die for his ankles throughout his whole career. If he's a Sambo, he's a two-time world Sambo champion, two-time combat Sambo world champion. That's when you're allowed to kick and punch. It's basically MMA. He's seen a lot of guys die for the ankle. I'm very confident, in that. Every Sambo guy I've ever trained with is a leg locker. So hard to say, how much experience he has with that diving, rolling into the ankle type style. I love that style. I think it works. I think it's super effective, and I practice it myself. And I'll do a lot of videos on that. I should do more videos on that. The only reason I don't do those videos is because I find that maybe it's too complicated for people, and it'll only be like a small amount of people who understand what that is. And but I'll do some videos. I'll do some rolling videos in the future, and see if you guys like it. He's a great scrambler. The best way to hold Tony Ferguson down, I would say, is a crucifix. He's going to be hard to hold down. Kevin Lee showed us that it's doable. Kevin Lee mounted him. Kevin Lee took total control when it was on the ground. Some people think Tony was playing possum. I don't think so. He just got passed. He just got passed. He made mistakes. He got mounted at the end of round 1. He escaped the mount at the end of round 1, but it wasn't looking good. It was total control on the ground till round 3. And we're going to talk about round 3, Tony Ferguson versus Kevin Lee, round 3, later in this video. But he didn't look great in round 1. That was definite. Can that be an indicator of what will happen if Khabib gets him down? If Khabib gets him down and he hasn't fixed what if he looks like he looked if Tony Ferguson looks like he looked against Kevin Lee in round 1 against Khabib, Khabib's going to do the same thing Kevin Lee did. Total domination round 1. This one's from Ryan Kearns 9. Do you believe wrestling is the most important aspect of MMA? If you're gonna wrestle, if you're gonna train MMA from young, you got to start with wrestling. Absolutely, it builds athleticism. It's great for control. You get to dictate whether the fight is standing up, whether the fight is on the ground. I don't believe we should separate jiu-jitsu and wrestling. I think it should all be one sport. I think the future is going to be like that. At TriStar, jiu-jitsu practice and wrestling practice is all one practice. Some days we're teaching you how to take a guy down with an underhook, and some days we're teaching you how to leg lock a guy, and some days we're teaching you how to sprawl and defend the takedown and shoot a darce. You shouldn't separate the two. This separation is gonna dissolve. And the only reason we have this separation is because we have instructors that teach jiu-jitsu, and we have instructors that wrestle, and they don't understand each other's techniques. But they're building a generation of people who are of athletes who are training with both wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and eventually it's just gonna mold in one. It's just gonna mold in one. It's ridiculous that we separate the two. It's just a question of time before we undo that. Again, I've talked about this in the past. What's the difference between doing a kimura against somebody holding a single leg and doing a kimura on the ground? It's all the same thing. It's just standing jiu-jitsu, and wrestling is just wrestling on the ground. It should be blended together. And I think the best athletes in the future, they're gonna have blended jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Like Damian Maia. Is Damian Maia a wrestler now, or is he a jiu-jitsu guy? He's always gonna be known as a jiu-jitsu guy because of his history. However, I would say that his wrestling is just as good, or almost just as good. Okay, next question here. This one is from Axe Tubes. Axe Tubes asks, would you let young Noah Zahabi train with bears? My son Noah Zahabi, my eldest son, he does jiu-jitsu. If you guys haven't seen him, I post some videos about him rolling. And he's 9 years old now. Absolutely, I would let him train with bears, just like Khabib. Khabib's father has a video of Khabib rolling. I think he's probably like 11 or 10 or 9 years old, just as young as Noah, and he's rolling with an actual live bear. They're holding a little cub bear on a leash, and he's wrestling Khabib. It's an awesome video. Such an amazing video. I would absolutely let my son wrestle a bear. Of course, if the bear doesn't, he's not dangerous. I wouldn't risk a mortality. Of course not. But it looked like Khabib was having fun, and you could always say you wrestled a bear. It's pretty awesome. I thought it's pretty fantastic. Definitely would let my children wrestle bears. Definitely. This one is from Jonathan Kiowa. This is a really small one. I gotta zoom in here. Do you think Khabib will be just as good on his back as he is on the top? Just in case Tony sweeps him from the bottom and Tony ends up on top. I was watching some of Khabib's fights outside of UFC, his early fights, the ones he did in Russia. I believe they were in Russia. The commentators are not speaking English. And there's one fight where he gets put on the bottom and he triangles the guy and he does a beautiful armbar triangle sweep back into triangle. He did a good job off his back, a really nice job. I assume he's been put on his back quite a bit in his career. He's been growing up in wrestling. He's not always gonna get the takedown. He's growing up around great wrestlers, great sambo players. I assume he's been taken down quite a bit in his career. And in that one fight that I saw, he did a very nice transition from armbar to triangle, back and forth. Ended up winning off his back with a triangle. So I assume that he has a very good jiu-jitsu game on the bottom. We're probably not gonna get to see it. We might not see it. It's very possible. But it's there. He has a layer of defense there, definitely. Okay, here's another small one here. This one is from Giovanni Fugasa. He asks, do you think Tony's ground game is a threat for Khabib? In my opinion, Khabib's ground game is tailor-made to be Tony's 10th planet Achilles heel has always been a heavy top game grappler who can keep his posture while passing. And Tony has already showed some of these weaknesses against Lee and especially against Castillo. Unless some crazy standing darce choke happens, I don't think Tony has the edge on Khabib, at least not in the grappling. Well, one thing that you're saying here doesn't really make sense is that you're saying that the 10th planet system has always had trouble with guys posturing out, big strong wrestlers that are posturing out of the guard. In my opinion, from what I understand of 10th planet, I'm not a 10th planet practitioner. I haven't really studied under 10th planet. Okay, so I got to train with Eddie Bravo one time. He gave me a nice rundown of his system. We drilled one time we met at a UFC event. We're in the back. We were both coaching different fighters. There was a mat there. Me and him were looking at each other like, hey, do you want to? And we just kind of drilled a little bit. We just drilled. We're gonna start wrestling in the locker rooms, but. We drilled and he showed me a lot of his game and I thought it was very interesting stuff, a lot of stuff I've never seen before. He has a very unique system, very different style of jiu-jitsu that I've never really seen before. Lots of new stuff, and of course it was all guard stuff, rubber guard stuff. His system is really nice. I've come across a few rubber guard guys, but I've never come across one of his top students. I never got a chance to roll with one of his top students, and I know he has really good students, Gio and a few other guys. Really good jiu-jitsu guys, really good rubber guard guys. I haven't gotten a chance to roll live, so I can't really tell you. Okay, I can't really tell you. I don't really know. However, you're saying that the Achilles heel has always been a heavy top game wrestler, but that the style is, from what I understand and from what Eddie explained to me, his style is designed to stop a big, strong, heavy wrestler that's on top of you who wants to posture. His whole game is about breaking down the posture. His whole game is locking up a big, sweaty, strong, athletic guy who's trying to smash past your guard or posture out of it. That's his whole design. And it's designed to not get hit. It's made for MMA. So his whole thing is to come to this point right now. To fight. The 10th planet system was designed, from what I understand from Eddie. I might be wrong. Maybe Eddie's explained his system publicly and I haven't heard it. It's totally different to what I'm saying, but from what I understand, his whole game is designed to beat a Khabib. He saw this coming years ago. He saw that big, strong, heavy, top game guys are crushing the guard, and what can we do against it? And of course, a Marcelo Garcia has an answer, a John Denahar has an answer, a Rafa Mendes would have an answer, but Eddie Bravo's answer is from what I understand, for MMA. Like, okay, what do you do against those guys? And they're allowed to hit you. So you're saying it hasn't worked in the past. Well, yeah, we've seen rubber guard guys compete in the past, and we've seen many of them lose. It happens. Why? Because being on the bottom, when there's a time limit, you're more likely to lose. Why? Here's my take on it. In jiu-jitsu, Vale Tudo, jiu-jitsu was designed with no time limit. When Helio Gracie was fighting in Brazil and all these classical fights were happening in Brazil and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was developing, there was no time limit. Okay, from what I understand, the majority of the fights were done with no time limit. So jiu-jitsu was designed for endurance, you know, how do you save energy, etc. Whereas in wrestling, there's a time limit. You got to score within a certain time limit. So there's a certain type of context to their techniques. Their techniques are about explode, control, score, dominate. It's got to be done now. There's an urgency. There's a type of athleticism that's developed from that type of training. They're training very specifically to what they're going to face in their competition. Whereas I see jiu-jitsu as an endurance base. So if you told me, hey, there's a fight to the death, we're going to lock two men in a cage here and there's not going to be any time limits or judges, I pick the jiu-jitsu guy over the wrestler all the time because the wrestler can control, he could dominate, but he can't really finish. And it's a matter of time. Later in the fight, you're going to see the jiu-jitsu guy is going to get one sweep or one sub and the match is over. You know, very likely over. So jiu-jitsu is a style of it's going to evolve. It's going to change because now we have time limits and guys are getting smart. They're saying, hey, if you spend too much time on your back, the guy's going to defend a few submissions and he's going to get the judge's decision, right? So this will evolve with time, but right now, as it is, the jiu-jitsu guys right now on the bottom, they're not doing what they have to do. And that's why I commend Jose Aldo so much. I hold him in such high regard because he used jiu-jitsu in such a smart way that he countered what wrestlers did, all the top game heavy guys, and he did it in a very different way than Ferguson is trying to do it. And now Ferguson's having success, definitely. He's winning. He's a world champion. Will he have as much success as Jose Aldo? Jose Aldo has briefly been put on his back in fights, and he's done, you know, he's used butterfly guard, hip heisting. He's used some beautiful jiu-jitsu movements. You know, when you fought Frankie Edgar, he went to butterfly guard. He goes more to butterfly. And he used a failed sweep attempt to get back to his feet, which I think is brilliant. And I think you can do things in more than one way. That's why this one fight is very important. But again, there's a time limit to this fight. There's a time limit. I would definitely favor a jiu-jitsu guy in a no time limit fight. But I also consider Khabib to be a jiu-jitsu guy, a sambo guy / sambo guy. Okay, he's not incompetent on the ground. He's supremely competent on the ground. He's intelligent. He's a complete grappler. He has the takedowns and he has the ground game. So the time limit issue doesn't really apply to him. I'm talking about a guy who knows a lot of wrestling and very basic jiu-jitsu. That's the no time limit scenario definitely is a major factor for a type of fighter like that. You know, facing a type of fighter like that, because he may be competent enough to just stay out of submissions for a period of time. So with that said, I really look forward to see how the 10th planet system clashes. And he's a black belt. You know, Tony Ferguson is a black belt in the 10th planet system. I really look forward to see how it clashes with the master grappler, the master grappling style of Khabib, the sambo style, the wrestling style, the judo style, and of course the great jiu-jitsu / sambo style he brings on the ground. So looking forward to that. Next question. This one is from Rahul. Rahul asks, is pulling guard a smart strategy for Khabib? No, it would be a horrible strategy. You would be pulling guard against arguably one of the greatest top game guys there is in the game. That would be, Rahul, wake up. This would be a horrible, horrible strategy. Horrible. Tony would want to get a Darce locked in, standing up, and he's done it before, and then maybe sit to guard. And then I would say maybe, kind of create a roll and get on top of the Darce. Or maybe if time is running out, jump guard, because you can Darce somebody from a closed guard if time is running out and you think you can maybe get that sub. Guillotine, I wouldn't sit to guard with a guillotine personally, not against Khabib. If you guys watched the RDA fight, I just rewatched it this morning, and RDA locked up a guillotine, sat to guard, and it didn't even look close. It looked like Khabib had been in a million guillotines and knew exactly how to get out of it. Again, guillotines can happen if you have a tight bite. If I felt like I had a bite on that neck, I would jump to guard. It's all about the bite. If I felt the bite wasn't on, I would not jump to guard. But jumping to guard in this fight, in my opinion, there are very few exceptions to when it's a good idea. And one of them would be if Tony in his long arms has a nice tight Darce, then I would say maybe sit to guard. But other than that, that would be a crazy idea. Next one here is, okay. Let's see. This one's from Adam James Emelianenko. What do you think is better on who do you think is better on the ground and why? 10th Planet versus Sambo. I already covered that, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail. Um, I don't know. I just don't have a feeling. I have a feeling like I don't think Tony is gonna do much rubber guard. I think Tony, if he gets put on his back, he's gonna land those. He's gonna throw those elbows hard, hard, and those elbows are gonna be damaging. They're gonna be damaging. They're gonna be painful. They're gonna be something that Khabib is gonna have to deal with. He's not gonna just ignore them. They're gonna be a big problem. Can he rubber guard him? Yeah, he'll rubber guard him. He'll tie him up. But those tie ups, I think, probably get broken, and there'll be a lot of pummeling. But I don't know. I don't know if he gets him in a full 10 planet, locked in and triangled and all that. That's it's not impossible. It's just hard for me to imagine because Khabib is so wide. His back is so wide. He's so strong. I mean, it can happen if he gets tired. Yeah, of course. I would agree with you that if he gets tired, and we saw such a great triangle from Ferguson on Lee, but Lee looked like he was fatigued. So I mean, it can happen. You're right. I'm thinking of a fresh Khabib. On a fresh Khabib, it would probably be hard, but on a worn down Khabib, yeah, I could see it. I could see it, kind of like what happened with Kevin Lee. I mean, if it could happen to Kevin Lee, it can happen to anybody in the division. Okay, this one is from ex Filipino XC. What's more physically demanding, sambo or wrestling? I would say wrestling. Wrestling, you're standing up, you're pulling on each other's necks, you're pummeling. It's more calories per second, in my opinion. When you're grappling or doing sambo, you're more on the ground. I'm assuming you're not talking about combat sambo. I'm assuming you're talking about like the grappling on the ground. A lot of the weight is carried by the ground. It's less on you. If you know what you're doing, it's more efficient, in my opinion. I mean, I could roll forever. Wrestling, you could also wrestle forever. It's just more demanding, in my opinion. I would say wrestling is more tough on the body. Cassidy Erickson, what wrestling transitions and defensive techniques such as the wizard, Granby rolls, etc. could work against Khabib for Tony? Thanks for us. Love your breakdowns. Thank you, Cassidy. Appreciate it. Yeah, all that can work. Snap downs, Granby rolls, wizards, they all work. It's all about how you use them, timing, etc. What would I use most against Khabib? Personally, I would use, if I was Tony, I would use a lot of sprawling. Don't let him lock up the leg, because when he locks up the leg, he takes you to the fence. When he takes you to the fence and he has the leg, he goes up to the upper body, and then I could see him easily body locking Tony Ferguson. If he gets to his grips, Tony's tall, so his body's gonna get crunched. And we saw Khabib take down RDA with a beautiful Tai Otoshi, beautiful body lock Tai Otoshi. I mean, if it happened to if it happened to RDA, in my opinion, it can very easily happen to Ferguson. Ferguson can get crunched. So what Ferguson needs to do is sprawl, not give the leg. So he needs to end up in a front headlock when Khabib shoots that double, because Khabib does shoot a double, and he shoots it on his knees. When you shoot a double on your knees, you're trying to get deep on the leg, like you would see a Damian Maia. You see Damian Maia shoots on the knee. I'm not a big believer in shooting on the knee. I think some guys can make it work, like Khabib obviously makes it work. Damian Maia actually makes it work. But if you look at George St. Pierre's career, he never shoots on the knee. It's a question of style, a preference. I personally don't like going down on my knee. I think it opens you up for guillotines and darces and all that craziness. I teach a lot of shooting standing up for MMA. If you shoot on your knee, it's not wrong. I don't want to say it's wrong, but you gotta have a great neck. You gotta make sure that your neck is not like I'm not the type of guy that likes to give up his neck. If he shoots on the knee, Tony Ferguson needs to face the head and sprawl and not give up the leg, not let the leg get gripped. You want to avoid the grips. Why? Because it ends up in chain wrestling, and Khabib is a great chain wrestler. So you want to avoid contact. And if you get gripped, in my opinion, I wouldn't Granby roll necessarily. I wouldn't roll out yet. I would limp leg. Limp leg is when, if you see the best limp legger of all time in MMA, in my opinion, is Jose Aldo. Limp leg is when you kind of point your knee down to the ground and your leg slips out. I would sprawl, not give up a leg, and if my leg, I feel it getting grabbed, I would go limp leg immediately. I wouldn't whizzer and grab the wrist like a lot of people do. They whizzer and grab. I wouldn't lock up with Khabib, because if you lock up with him, in my opinion, it could be a problem. And that's what everybody's done so far against Khabib. They lock up, they whizzer and grab the wrist. I wouldn't necessarily whizzer and grab the wrist. He's had too much success in that position. I would try to avoid that position if possible. So if you're asking me, I think all these things can work, but I would try to sprawl, not allow the grips. And if the grips happen, I would limp leg immediately. I would immediately go for a limp leg. Damien Cota asks, or excuse me, comments, if you had to create, no, he asks, this is a question. If you had to create a game plan for Tony to beat Khabib, what would it be? That's a great question. Quite a question here. Let me see how we're doing on time. Oh, we're good on time. If I had to create a game plan for Tony, well, you know, I like Tony's variety standing up. I think he has to land elbows to back up Khabib. He's got to get Khabib moving backwards. Imagine if this fight is played out in a way where Khabib has to move backwards. Wouldn't that spell the beginning of the end to you? Can Khabib be successful moving backwards against a Tony Ferguson? In my opinion, it will be a very difficult feat. How does Tony get Khabib to move backwards? How does he force him? How does he force him to move backwards? Well, he's got to connect hard. Now, we've seen Khabib eat punches and just walk forward and just kind of slip a little bit and keep walking forward. He has a great chin. He has a great athleticism to back him up. When he gets hit, he just kind of shrugs it off. What shots do you guys think that Tony can land on Khabib that'll make Khabib say, hey, I got to back up and create some time here. I got to back up and slow this match down because I cannot get hit even with something half that powerful. I'm in a vulnerable state. I need to recover. What type of strike do you guys think could Tony land? Well, I think elbow is one. I think flying knee is one. I think a spinning back fist. I think a spinning kick. You know, what's his name? Sorry, Barboza. Excuse me. Barboza threw a spinning kick that missed, but he threw like two of them, two or three actually, and they missed. You know, Khabib kind of moved and ducked, but if that landed, I mean, that could have been a disaster. You know, that could have been a disaster, and it didn't land. But if it did, you can only imagine. Could it have gone the other way? Is that crazy enough to say? Can Tony Ferguson throw something wild and crazy and connect? I believe so. But he could also miss. It's hard. These things are not predictable. They're just not predictable. If I was Tony Ferguson, I would be looking to time Khabib's steps walking forward, because we know what he's gonna do. He has one pace. He's coming forward. He's not the type of guy who kind of like Yoel Romero kind of zigzags in front of you, and then all of a sudden, boom, he explodes. And when's he gonna explode? You don't know. You don't know. He could explode early in the round, mid round. You don't know. He's very like he's a what do you call those things? That you crank the handle and then it pops. What do you call that? The jack in the box. He's like a jack in the box. You know, pow. You know. That's not the case with Khabib. Khabib walks forward like a RoboCop, and the rhythm is constant. However, he does have an explosive double that he shoots sporadically. So he does do that. You know, that is one thing. But his striking is very forward. Now, you can use that to your advantage. You can kind of do the jack-in-the-box thing. You know, explode, boom, and meet him on the way in as he's coming forward. So you're moving backwards, and as he's coming forward, he's always moving forward. Boom, time him. If you can make that happen, it will be magic. You know, like you hurt a guy because you're catching him walking in. Easier said than done. The downside is you might miss, and then you feel like you're suffocating. Like Barboza was throwing, boom, he's throwing missile after missile, and they were missing, or they were grazing Khabib. And the same thing with Johnson, and Johnson connected, but Khabib kept walking forward, kept rolling with it, and it's suffocating for the guy to backpedal and throw these missiles at him. It's just a bull versus the matador. That's what it is, you know. Khabib being the bull and Tony being the matador in this case. Mouth of the Ape asks, many Dagestanis have been fighting and dying in Iraq and Syria. They are a nation that has ethnic cleansing on their borders. How much of a factor does it play for a fighter coming from a harsh world in helping them feel more confident in a cage fight? Well, you know, I've actually trained one fighter that came from a war-torn country, and I won't name who it is, just to keep it private. But sorry, I had a little technical difficulty here. And he came from a war-torn country, and before fights, he's the most mentally strong human being I've ever trained with. He was fighting big. I don't want to name who he is, but he was fighting big names, tough fights, and the guy was cool, relaxed, and very unperturbed. And I asked him, like, how do you stay so cool? And I'm really interested about the mind. And he told me, look, I grew up in war. I grew up in, as a kid, people dying around me, harsh conditions. This is nothing. This is easy. This is like, we're just punching each other. The people are not actually dying. And I was really like, wow, it's incredible. Like, I never lived in a war-torn country. I'm very grateful for that. This is, I think, something we should be very, very grateful. We should be very conscious of how blessed we are to have peace. I like to watch a lot of documentaries on history and all that. And you look at these countries that went to war. Like, of course, like World War II and all these incredible ancient wars. Like, this is like another level of fear and mental anxiety that we're not exposed to in the West. Luckily so. Well, I shouldn't say we're not exposed to. I would say our civilians are not exposed to. Of course, we have many soldiers from the West that go out other parts of the world, and they suffer from this type of exposure. But I'll tell you something. I know I have only experience with one such type guy that you described. Only one. And that's what he told me. He told me, look, this is nothing. Fighting is nothing. It's just a game. There's nothing to it. And I don't have a gun pointed at me. I don't have life, or it's not life and death. And I think Khabib takes some of that with him. I think he does. I don't know his history. I don't know how he actually grew up, but he definitely didn't grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth. He definitely didn't grow up living on, growing up resting on a silk pillow. And I would say the same thing for Tony. Tony is a hardcore guy. He's not a softie. Obviously, he's world champion in MMA, for goodness sake. The guy's hardcore. The guy's been in wars. The guy's known for never giving up. I would say they're both supremely mentally tough. Supremely mentally tough. But then again, you're right. Dagestanis have a culture of war. Not war, but of the hard life. Let's just call it hard life. And I think that will definitely serve Khabib. Definitely. At least I've learned that in my experience. A fighter that I've worked with. It was a major edge for him. Major, mentally speaking. This one is from Pompous Psycho. Pompous Psycho. For us, sorry, I gotta blow this up. For us, what's your take in the previous psychological warfare, body language, and face-offs? It appears that Tony likes to have fun with Khabib. I don't see Tony being intimidated or nervous. They're both next to each other. You're saying here that Khabib's getting emotional and that he's not liking Tony's joking around, smiling, wearing sunglasses, Tony's mind games. You know what? I think Khabib's been training for this moment for so long to be world champion. I think his father has raised him from such a young age. I think there's a pressure there. I think there is. There's a pressure. He's taking this seriously. Tony's already been world champion. Regardless if he wins or loses, he'll always have been a world champion. I think in his mind, he reached the ultimate goal, and whatever happens, happens, and he could be more relaxed. I think there's more pressure on Khabib's shoulders. So maybe that's why he's not joking around. But a hungry Khabib, in my opinion, is very dangerous, very dangerous. And I think Khabib's whole life has been preparing for this moment. I don't think he has room to joke around. That's just his personality. Hard to say. I don't think either one of them are going to get flustered mentally. They're both going to pull the trigger. Some guys get flustered mentally. The moment is too big for them. When the time comes to pull the trigger, they're out there in their head somewhere thinking about all these crazy things. They're thinking about how they look, how much money they're going to make, what fans are tweeting them, how do they look. I don't think that's going to be in either Tony Ferguson's mind or Khabib. Both these guys are only focused on getting the kill, getting the win. I don't think these guys got to the level what they are by being distracted. So all the joking and all that to me is not going to make much of a difference in the fight. I think it's going to come down to skill and strategy. The mental part is already, they're both aces in the mental game. This one's from Khal. Khal asks, since Eddie Bravo made this argument, people have repeated this one over and over again. Khabib's opponents were always defending and trying to get back to their feet, and Khabib took them down. Tony Ferguson, on the other hand, is offensive when he plays on his back. So what do you think about this? We saw Khabib easily dominate a high-level black belt like Dos Anjos on the ground. Will the same happen to Ferguson? From what I understand, you're saying that Eddie Bravo is making the point that Ferguson is going to accept the takedown if it happens. He's going to play off his back to get a sub, as opposed to Khabib's past opponents who didn't try to get the sub. They tried to get up. They tried to fight the current. Yeah, I believe Ferguson is going to do like what he did with Kevin Lee. He's got plenty of time. There's 5 rounds. He's going to try to land those elbows. He's going to try to work the guard. We got to wait to see what happens. I think it's more the elbows than anything else. I'm really impressed with the elbows from the bottom by Tony. I thought they were really impressive. I thought he did a good job against Kevin Lee. I thought he protected himself well on the bottom. Even though he got dominated in round 1, in round 2, he did a very good job. In round 2, he got taken down early. He did get up, like Eddie Bravo has to admit, in round 2 against Kevin Lee took him down beautifully in round 2. And then what did Ferguson do? He put his feet on Kevin Lee's hips, pushed him off, and got up. I think Ferguson is doing it all. He's doing the get-ups, and he's doing the subs, and he's doing the elbows. He's doing it all on the bottom. He understands that sometimes it's smart to get up, sometimes it's smart to go for the sub. And I think Eddie knows that too. Eddie Bravo, of course, understands that. There's a time and place to get the subs. There's a time. I think what he's trying to say is that everybody was a one-track mind, and Tony's not like that. Tony's going to do it all on the bottom. I agree. I totally agree, man. Tony does it all on the bottom. He goes for the subs, he goes for the get-up, and he lands strikes from the bottom. The guy is really, really good from on the bottom. And I think the next generation of fighters should look at him closely. What does he do on the bottom? He does a great job. And I also agree that Khabib has not fought a guy with a bottom game like Tony Ferguson. Now, does that mean that I think that Tony Ferguson is going to be successful from the bottom? I don't know. I'm tuning in like the rest of you. I'm tuning in to see what is going to happen in this fight. This is a phenomenal fight. I'm super excited about this fight because I have so many questions that I want answered. I don't know what's going to happen in this fight. I think this fight is like a 50-50 fight. I would even give it 51-49 Khabib because I like the guy. I was in the same practice room with him once at Henzo's. I didn't get a chance to roll with him. I really did want to roll with him. But I didn't get a chance. There was a lot of guys in the room, and he was practicing with his group of guys. I don't want to interrupt him, but I would have loved to roll with him. I love to see the style that he brings. I would love to roll with a Tony Ferguson. The style that they bring is so opposite. I find their styles are so opposite. I find that Khabib is so orthodox, so textbook, but his details on the moves that he does, he took moves that we would say are basic and took them to the next level. He made them detailed. He made them advanced basics. Whereas Ferguson will do a variety of things that we're like, what the hell? What was that he just did? What was that movement, that transition that he did? It was very unorthodox, very creative, very outside the box. It's a polar opposite style. I can't wait to see how these two play out, how these two, when they clash, what's going to happen. And when I don't know what's going to happen, that's what makes a fight so intriguing. And this fight have so many question marks. I have no idea how the stand-up is going to play out. The ground game is going to be really, really interesting as well, So, again, I agree with... If you guys are saying that Eddie's going to do something very... If Eddie's saying that Tony's going to be totally different on the bottom game than all the rest of Khabib's opponents, I agree with you 100%. Ferguson's ground game, he does it all, and he's very, very, very special on the bottom. Even though he has shown major weaknesses, Kevin Lee crushed him on top in round 1. But then he got stopped in round 3. Ferguson's bottom game shined in round 3. So, he had a bad showing, then a really great showing. At the end of the day, he got the sub. What's going to happen when he fights Khabib? I have no idea. It's just... I wouldn't be surprised if he gets smashed, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does something incredible and gets a finish. Look at what happened with Kevin Lee. In round 1, he got passed, he got controlled, he got mounted. It just was not good. It was not a great bottom game performance. And then in round 3, we had a beautiful... And I know you're all going to say, yes, but Kevin Lee was tired. He was tired because the guy won't stop squirming on the bottom. He won't stop squirming. He won't stop moving. He won't stop escaping. He won't stop doing all these crazy things. And he's popping back up to his feet and he's throwing these wild shots. He's throwing these attacks. He's throwing these elbows. And then when you take him back down, he's squirming and twisting and turning. And this is all part of the game. It's all part of the game. If you cannot control a guy, you might get tired. You might get tired. Can Khabib control him? Can't wait to see this fight. This one is from Pickle. Okay, guys, I'm going to be rounding it up soon. I had said I would do maybe an hour long. Okay, I'm at 50 minutes. I don't want to be stingy here, guys, but I'm gonna try to do. I'm really running low on time here. I got a bunch of things to do today, and I'm gonna try to squeeze in the whole hour. How much of Khabib's success would you attribute to his incredible self-belief and focus? You say here he's humble, very confident. I love that about him. I think his character is incredible. Despite being a technical striker, despite being at a technical striking disadvantage, he simply walked down a world-class, dangerous striker like Barboza. You're saying here he has a great humble attitude. I love that about him. I totally love his. I got to hang out with Khabib one time at a weigh-in. We chatted. I'm a big fan of Khabib's. He is a very humble guy. He's a student of the game. He knows all the fighters, what they do. He watches the whole division. Like, he studies the game. You know, he's a guy who studies the game, and he's a master technician. I think it's all part of his abilities. You know, he's a great technician and he has a great mental game. You need both. You know, and I think Tony Ferguson matches him on that level as well. He's a great technician. More sloppy though, no doubt about it. Ferguson is more of a wild man. But he is more sloppy. He's more of a cowboy. Okay? He's more of a cowboy. He's got that personality of a cowboy. But he's so hard to kill, Tony Ferguson, that being a cowboy doesn't backfire on him as much as it would for a guy with a lesser athletic ability. It's very important to note. He's a cowboy and he gets away with it, I personally think, because of his long limbs and athletic ability. Khabib also has incredible athletic ability, but he's more of a cerebral, technical approach, where Ferguson is more of an artistic genius. You know, he's more of an artistic, I'm going to do something you haven't imagined. You know, at one point he started salsa dancing against RDA, you know, and I think he was just doing it because it was creating an angle for him, and then he kind of shot in. I don't know if you guys remember this, but he sat down on his butt and shot in on RDA. Sorry, I busted a rib, and that made me laugh. My ribs are really... I badly busted up ribs and I cannot laugh. I cannot cough. Yes. Tony Ferguson sat down, literally did a butt scoot, double leg shot. Never seen that before. However, when you watch his training videos, he's actually training it. And he's doing all this craziness. And that's part of his game. It's part of his genius. It's part of what makes him unpredictable. The guy's doing kung fu techniques. And when you're thinking, what's this guy doing? He's setting you up for something. I agree with you. He's got a great mind game, but it's also his technique. You cannot overlook. There's a lot of tough, mentally strong human beings out there, but are you technical? Can you use that technique? Can you use that mind? The mind is what helps you pull the trigger when the time comes. But if you don't know how to pull the trigger, you're gonna lose. Yair Jatkin asks, do you think a specialist like Khabib should keep training that aspect of and overwhelm people in that specific field and rely on that? Or do you think it's better to focus on things that specialist is less good at and improve his overall game and surprise people? Would love to hear from you. Thank you, Yair. What he's saying basically, from what I understand, is should Khabib stay with the basics? You know, he's always doing the classic takedowns, double leg, single leg, hip tosses, Tayotoshis. Should he keep perfecting these movements, these basic movements, these very popular movements, or should he develop this unorthodox monkey wrench? You know, throw a monkey wrench here and there. Maybe he should start drilling a spinning back kick and try to surprise his opponent with something he hasn't done before. I believe the answer is yes to both. I think you have to take both avenues, but in a very intelligent way. Once there's no more, you gotta keep making the basics more and more advanced, and you also have to slowly add a trick here or two. So it's really a question of balance. There's a time and place where you gotta add a new technique, Not too many new techniques, but one or two. The point where Khabib is in his career, people are studying him, people are watching him. Are these same old tricks going to keep working? In my opinion, they can, as long as you can threaten from a different avenue at the same time. So I agree with you. Now's the time for him to start getting a one or two new tricks up his sleeve so that he can keep that surprise element there. Because once people know you too well, they start cutting you off at the pass. As soon as you start trying to apply your game, they're going to cut you off. They're not going to let you get from step one to step two. Why? Simply because you're predictable. They know what your second step is. So his game now has been seen. It's been seen. He's very popular. People are watching him. People are got their eyes on him. It's time now to add a wrinkle here and there. And hopefully he does it for this fight. Okay, guys, we are running out of time. I'm going to do two more. Two more, guys. Kurtshid Ali asks, as we all have seen before, Kevin Lee mounted Tony, but we also know that Tony can take a beating and he always finds a way to win. My question is, if Khabib takes him down and just beats him for 3 rounds, can Tony take that beating and come back? Because if he can, I believe he's going to win. So you're saying, look, we all know Tony can take a beating. Can he come back and win in the championship rounds? Man, that is possible. That's why I think this fight might be really exciting, because you can never count Tony out. Now, we saw him when he fought Lando. He got kicked in the neck. He got dropped. I mean, he got hit hard by Lando. He got hit hard. I mean, I thought Lando was on his way to win. And then he just came back from the dead. He just came back. Even when he gets knocked down, he does this thing where he drops. Even when Kevin Lee dropped him, he drops and he bounces back up. He just boom, you know. And that's, imagine hitting a guy with a brick, you know. And the guy just hits the ground and pops right back up, and he's right back in your face, and he's throwing all these. That's a deterring. That is a deterring event, you know. That's discouraging, I should say. Excuse me, discouraging. That's why what I like about Khabib is not gonna care. If he gets a takedown, you're not just gonna pop back up to your feet. You know, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. Maybe it can happen once or twice, but not gonna be easy to do repeatedly. Yeah, man, it's very possible. Very possible. Nobody knows. The truth of the matter is nobody knows. At the end of the day, it's the Matador versus the Bull. Is the Matador gonna get out of the way and get his strike, or is he gonna get run down and crushed? We gotta wait and see. We have to wait and see. All right, here it is. MMA man Tony has been saying that he knows how to hand fight, and that's why he's neutralized Khabib's wrestling. So you're saying here that Tony's claimed that he knows how to hand fight, and this will neutralize Khabib's wrestling. Given this and his past wrestling credentials, how effective is his wrestling ability in MMA and versus Khabib? Also, considering he was controlled by Castillo 4 years ago, can Khabib do the same? It comes down to pummeling. He's totally right. Ferguson is totally right. You know, I was telling you guys earlier, if I had to give a strategy to Tony, I would be, let's not lock up with this guy. Let's get the pummeling down tight. Let's get the grip fighting down tight. Easier said than done. If the pummeling does happen, if the grips do occur, we have to limp leg. We must break the grips. Why? That's his comfort zone. Clinching, tying up, chain wrestling. You know, Ben Askren made a whole career off that. You know, he chain wrestled guys and crushed them with it. He totally did. I mean, these guys are, you know, there's some guys are really, really good at that. You don't want to lock up with them. So I totally agree with Ferguson here. His line of thinking is in my opinion, correct. All right, guys, I said I was going to do 2 more. I'm going to pop in a few more because we're not at the 1 hour mark. I'm going to go for it. Do the whole 1 hour mark. Velvet Sky asks, do you think Khabib's leg and wrist control will negate Tony's elbows from the guard and also his triangle choke? Very good question here. Man, I think Tony's going to land those elbows. I think those elbows are dangerous. I think Khabib needs to get to half guard ASAP. He needs to land those strikes from the guard. Excuse me. And when Tony's doing his game, if he can unlock, if Tony starts putting the feet on the hips like he did with Lee, not closing the guard, because if he closes the guard, I would stay with the posture, wrist control, like you're saying, beautiful, and ground and pound. I would try to go like Fedor style a little bit. But if those feet open, if he puts his feet on the hips, I would try to past the knee line, a lot like what George does, St. Pierre does, and put Tony in half guard. Kind of like what Couture used to do in his career. He used to kind of sit on the bottom leg. So he would go to half guard and sit on the bottom leg, the leg that's trapped between your legs. And I think that would slow down the elbows. It's harder to elbow from the bottom from there. From there, you can really ground and pound. I don't know if you guys remember the shots that Khabib was landing from half guard inside Michael Johnson's guard. So Michael Johnson was kind of in the half guard, and Khabib was landing some very powerful shots. I would like to see Khabib go to that position, the half guard position, and kind of hold him with one hand and throw those shots with the other. That I think would totally negate the elbows, very likely. But then again, not easy to get to that half guard position from the top, but it's very doable. We saw Kevin Lee do it. I mean, I can't see why Khabib couldn't do it. And I think from there he can neutralize. Again, the reason why I'm saying it's hard is because Ferguson has a good locked guard. Like, he locks the guard, does the rubber guard stuff, ties it up. Will he open the guard? I don't know. I think he'll do it all. I think he'll attempt it all. So if the guard is open, he can get that pass. Khabib can get that pass. If it remains locked, if those ankles remain locked, it's gonna be up to the ground and pound of Khabib to open those legs. All right, guys, I'm doing the last one. Here it is. I kept my promise to you guys. It's an hour. We are officially over an hour long. I'm not gonna be stingy here. I'm gonna answer one more. This one is from Forest Dog. Forest Dog says, what does Tony have to do differently than Khabib's other opponents to get back to his feet? He has shown these abilities. Has he shown these abilities in previous fights? Yes. I think what he did against Kevin Lee is very smart. He landed those elbows, man. Those elbows, the pulling in rubber guard stuff is great. The pushing, doing it all. I like what Tony Ferguson said and what Eddie Bravo said. He's not just going to try to get up to his feet. He's going to do it all. The elbows, the rubber guard, the tie-ups, the inversions, the funk rolling, the pushing up, getting up to his feet. All that. And he's got to do it at a high pace. That's the other ingredient I would add. Do it at a relentless pace. Does Khabib have 5 hard rounds in him? A lot of people think he does. A lot of people think he doesn't. He does a big weight cut. He's a big guy, Khabib. That's the one question mark. Can he do 5 hard rounds? The question mark. I'm not saying he can. I'm not saying he can't. I don't know. We have to wait and see. We know that Tony can do 5 hard rounds. We know. Without a doubt. Tony's gas tank is... Look what he did with Dos Anjos. That was a high-paced fight, and he didn't slow down one little bit. So we know that check mark is on Tony Ferguson's side, no doubt. Is it on Khabib's side? Listen, I'll venture to say yes. Unless he gets hit hard on the chin and gets rocked, he'll have 5 hard, long rounds in him. But it's a question mark, and you'd want to add the scrambler. Tony Ferguson's a scrambler. You always want to add high pace. Why? Because high pace leads to opportunities, mistakes made. And scramblers capitalize on mistakes. So if I was Tony Ferguson, I would want to make this chaotic. I'd want to make it chaotic on the ground, standing in the clinch. I wouldn't want to settle. Orthodox fighters want to settle in a position. They want to smash. They want to hold. They want to pin you. They want to control. They want to establish dominance. They don't want the position to keep changing every second. I think that's the brilliance of Tony. I think that's what he did against Kevin Lee. He stayed so active. Kevin Lee wanted to settle down, and Ferguson just didn't allow him. It was such a great fight by both men. It was a seesaw battle. But in the end, Tony Ferguson found that triangle. I can't wait to see what happens in this fight, guys. I told you, I think this fight is a 51-49 fight in favor of Khabib. It's a close one. It can go either way. Nobody knows what's going to happen in this fight. That's why this fight is so exciting. That's why all the fights that I do breakdowns on are fights, I don't know, I find I can go either way. It's not lopsided fights where I feel that one guy has a major advantage over the other and the other guy doesn't have the tools to beat this said fighter. No, we're doing fights that we don't. The reason why we're excited for fights is because just the truth of the matter is we don't know how their styles are going to clash. It's fire and ice here clashing. We don't know what's going to happen. So I want to give you guys a very big thank you for all your comments and questions. Thank you for participating. Send me in your comments and questions on this video. Also, maybe we'll do a part 2. If this video gets a lot of views and you guys want to do a part 2, maybe I'll do a part 2. This fight is still long away. There's still many weeks away. So maybe we do a part 2. Have fun with it. Or if you guys had enough, we won't beat a dead horse, but and we'll do some other fights. But if not, put your comments and questions in this fight. Keep talking about the fight. I'll respond as well, and maybe we can keep the anticipation going and enjoy the fight even more when we're watching it. I want to thank you all. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you for liking and sharing. Thank you for all the support. It's so appreciated. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Thank you.
Bonjour, mon nom est Marc-Élie Toussaint. Je suis entraîneur de sprint depuis 23 ans. Je travaille au niveau de la vitesse avec Georges Saint-Pierre depuis 4 ans. Je viens de tester le Tim Tam. C'est le meilleur instrument au niveau du relâchement musculaire que j'ai testé de toute ma carrière. Je le recommande à tous.
When you train a lot, you get tight. The best way to loosen up your muscle is the Tim Tam. Hi, I'm Georges Saint-Pierre. I'm using the Tim Tam machine after my training to help me with my recovery.